I stood on the cracked pavement of my childhood driveway, a single suitcase in my hand, staring at a house that looked exactly the same as the one I had left a decade ago. The white paint was peeling in the same spots, the rose bushes were still overgrown and unruly, and the porch light flickered with that rhythmic, annoying buzz I remembered from my restless teenage nights. My heart was pounding so hard against my ribs I thought it might bruise them. I hadn't called ahead. I hadn't sent a letter. I wanted to surprise them, to show my parents that I had made it, that I had built a life, and that the girl who ran away in tears at 19 was finally ready to come home. I reached for the doorbell, my fingers trembling. I took a deep breath, ready to apologize for the years of silence, ready to hug my mother, ready to hear my father's booming laugh. The door swung open, and the breath hitched in my throat. But it wasn't my mother standing there. It was my sister Clara. She looked older, of course, but the shock wasn't in her appearance. It was in the way she stood, the way she wore my mother's favorite silk apron, and the way she looked at me, not with joy, but with a cold, hollow suspicion that turned my blood to ice. Before I could even say a word, she narrowed her eyes and shut the door just enough to block my view of the hallway. "You're not supposed to be here," she said, her voice dripping with a mix of irritation and genuine fear. "Clara?" I whispered, my confusion mounting by the second. "It's me. It's Sarah. I'm finally home. Where are Mom and Dad?" She didn't smile. She didn't reach out to pull me into a hug. Instead, she leaned against the doorframe, her posture rigid. "You've been gone for 10 years, Sarah. 10 years. Nobody here has thought about you in a long, long time. And you need to leave right now." "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice rising in panic. I tried to push the door gently, but she shoved it back with surprising strength. "I'm coming in. I have so much to tell you. You're nothing to this family anymore," she hissed, her eyes darting toward the living room behind her. "Mom and Dad, they've moved on, and I've taken your place. You don't belong here, and if you have any sense at all, you'll turn around and walk back to whatever life you crawled out of." That was the moment everything I thought I knew about my family began to crumble. My name is Sarah, and I was the difficult daughter. Or so they told me, over and over, until I started to believe it. My father was a stern man who valued discipline above all else, and my mother was a woman who lived for the approval of our neighbors. I was the one who asked too many questions. The one who wanted to go to college in the city instead of marrying the local golden boy. And the one who ultimately broke their hearts by choosing a path they didn't approve of. When I left at 19, it was an explosive, tear-filled departure. I swore I'd never return until I was successful enough to make them proud. 10 years is a long time. It's long enough to build a career in marketing. Long enough to fall in love and have that love break you. And long enough to realize that no matter how far you go, you still crave the comfort of your own kitchen table. I had saved money, worked hard, and finally, I had the stability to return. I thought the past would have softened their edges. I thought time would have smoothed over the sharp, jagged rocks of our conflicts. But as I stood on that porch, staring at a sister who looked at me like I was a ghost haunting her, I realized I had walked into something much darker than a simple family disagreement. "Clara," I said, my voice softening, trying to be the bigger person. "I know I hurt you all. I know I left in a bad way. But I'm here to make amends. Can I at least see them? Can I talk to Mom?" Clara's face flickered for a second, a strange flash of pity passing through her eyes, before she hardened again. "Mom doesn't want to see you. And Dad isn't here. Where is he?" "He passed away, Sarah," she said flatly, 3 years ago. "A heart attack. You weren't there, and you weren't missed." The words felt like a physical blow. I stumbled back a step, the world tilting on its axis. My father was gone? How could I not know? I had sent letters. I had sent gifts. I had even called the house a few times over the years, though the line had been disconnected long ago. I thought they were just ignoring me. I didn't realize there had been a funeral, a life, and a death that I was completely excluded from. "Why didn't you tell me?" I sobbed, tears finally breaking through. "Clara, please, because you were the one who left," she shouted, her voice echoing down the quiet street. "You were the one who decided we weren't good enough, so why should we have invited you back for the worst moments of our lives? You only want to show up now that things are settled? Well, it's too late." She went to slam the door, but I caught the edge of it with my palm. "I'm not leaving until I see Mom." Before she could fight back, a voice drifted from the kitchen, a voice I hadn't heard in a decade, but one that was etched into the deepest part of my soul. "Clara, Who is at the door, dear? Is it the delivery man? My mother sounded tired, frail, but it was her. I didn't care about Clara's protests. I shoved the door open and stepped into the foyer. The smell hit me first, that mix of lavender soap and old books that always defined home. And there she was, standing in the hallway, looking much thinner and older than I remembered. When she saw me, the tray in her hands slipped, hitting the floor with a deafening crash of shattered ceramic and spilled tea. "Sarah?" she whispered, her hand rising to her mouth. "Mom," I gasped, rushing toward her. I bypassed Clara, who looked like she was ready to call the police, and threw my arms around my mother. She was shaking. She was so thin, her bones felt fragile against my chest. "You're really here," she breathed, but as I pulled back to look at her, I saw the same look that Clara had, a mix of fear and something else. "Shame? I'm so sorry I stayed away so long," I cried, holding her hands. "I didn't know about Dad. I didn't know anything. I tried to reach out, I promise." My mother looked past me, her eyes locking onto Clara. And that was when the true horror of the situation began to unfold. Clara stepped forward, placing a possessive hand on my mother's shoulder. "Mom, she shouldn't be here. You know what he said. You know what the plan is." "The plan?" I looked between them, my pulse racing. "What plan? What are you talking about?" My mother finally looked at me, her eyes brimming with tears. "Sarah, you shouldn't have come back. We told everyone you were dead." The silence in the room was deafening. The ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner seemed to grow louder, every second a hammer blow against my chest. "You told everyone." "What?" I whispered. "It was easier," Clara said, her voice devoid of any warmth. "When you left, Mom was a wreck. She couldn't handle the questions from the neighbors, the shame of her daughter running off without a word. So, we started telling people you had passed away. It kept people from judging us. And then, I started stepping in. I started doing everything you were supposed to do. I took over your room, your space in the family. I became the daughter they needed. And honestly, Sarah, I'm much better at it than you ever were." I felt nauseous. "You erased me? You told people I died just so you wouldn't have to explain why I left." "It worked," Clara said, almost bragging. "Everyone comforted Mom. We got sympathy instead of pity. And then, when Dad got sick, I was the one there. I was the one who held his hand at the end. I became the daughter he always wanted. You weren't a loss anymore. You were a memory that we controlled." I looked at my mother, desperate for her to deny it, for her to tell me that Clara was crazy, that she had missed me. But my mother just looked down at her shoes. "We had to survive, Sarah. Your father, he couldn't handle the idea that you'd chosen a life without us. He said if you left, you were dead to him. So, we made it official. It helped us move on." "I am not a memory," I yelled, the anger finally overriding the grief. "I am standing right here. I am your daughter. You're a stranger." Clara shot back, her eyes flashing with a terrifying intensity. "You left a hole, and I filled it. You can't just walk back in and demand to be part of this life. You forfeited that right 10 years ago." I looked around the house. There were photos on the wall, dozens of them. But in every single one, it was Clara. Clara at high school graduation, which I hadn't been to. Clara at the local fair. Clara standing where I used to stand in family portraits. It was as if the last decade had been rewritten, and I had been airbrushed out of existence. "I need to sit down," I said, my legs feeling like lead. I walked into the living room and sank onto the sofa. It felt like a trap. I looked at the coffee table, and there, sitting in a silver frame, was a picture of me when I was 16. I grabbed it. "You kept my picture?" I couldn't bring myself to throw it away, my mother whispered, finally sitting across from me. "But I kept it in a drawer. Clara was the one who put it back out recently." "I don't know why." Clara stood in the doorway, her arms crossed. "Because I wanted to see the look on your face when you realized you weren't needed." "Is that why you didn't answer my letters?" I asked, turning to my mother. "The letters I sent every birthday? Every Christmas?" My mother blinked. "Letters? Sarah, I never received any letters." I looked at Clara. The blood drained from her face. She stiffened, her jaw tightening. "Clara," I said slowly, a cold, sharp clarity washing over me. "Where are the letters?" "I don't know what you're talking about." She lied, but she couldn't look me in the eye. "You intercepted them." I realized, the pieces of the puzzle clicking into place with a sickening thud. "You didn't just replace me. You made sure I stayed away. You kept me from them, didn't you? You didn't want me coming back and ruining your perfect, curated life." Clara's face contorted into something ugly. a mask of resentment that she had clearly been wearing for a long time. You were always the favorite. Even when you were gone, Mom couldn't stop talking about what Sarah would have done. I did everything for them. I cleaned, I cooked, I took care of Dad when he was dying, and still, there was a shadow of you in every single room. I had to make sure that shadow stayed a memory. You monster, I whispered. I'm the survivor. She shrieked. You were the one who walked away. Don't you dare come in here and judge me for doing what was necessary to keep this family together. My mother looked between us, her face pale. She seemed to be shrinking into the sofa, caught between the daughter who had betrayed her and the daughter she had lost. Clara, is that true you kept her letters? Clara didn't answer. She just glared at me, breathing hard. I stood up. I didn't feel like a weak, lost girl anymore. The shock had burned away, leaving behind a cold, sharp anger. I walked over to the mantel and picked up a small ceramic bowl, a piece of pottery I had made in high school. It was still there. You tried to erase me, I said, looking at Clara. But you didn't do it because you loved them. You did it because you were jealous. You built your life on a foundation of lies, and you were terrified that if I walked through that door, the whole house of cards would fall down. It's not a lie, Clara hissed, her voice trembling. They love me. They depend on me. They depend on the version of you that you manufactured, I corrected. I turned to my mother. Mom, I came here wanting a reunion. I came here wanting to apologize for being young and stupid 10 years ago. But I'm not going to fight for a place in a house where my own sister kept me away from you on purpose. Sarah, wait, my mother pleaded, reaching out. Don't go, please. I looked at my mother, truly looked at her. I saw the weakness, the way she had allowed Clara to take over, the way she had accepted the lie because it was easier than facing the truth of her own regret. I felt a surge of pity for her, but I also felt a surge of resolve for myself. I can't stay here, Mom, I said gently. Not like this. Not while she's here, holding you hostage with her lies. If you want a relationship with me, you'll have to find a way to reach out. But I won't be a secret, and I won't be a dead person who periodically visits. I'm living, I'm breathing, and I'm moving on. I turned to Clara. Keep the house, Clara. Keep the memories. You've earned them, I suppose. You've spent 10 years building a life out of my absence. I hope it's everything you wanted. I walked toward the door. My heart was still breaking, the loss of my father, the realization of what my sister had done, the distance between me and my mother. But as I stepped out onto the porch, the air felt fresher than it had when I arrived. Sarah. Clara called out from the doorway, her voice sounding small, desperate. If you walk out, don't ever come back. We don't want you. I didn't turn around. I walked down the path, the sound of my heels clicking against the concrete rhythmically, grounding me. I didn't stop until I reached my car. I sat in the driver's seat, the engine turning over with a steady, reliable hum. As I drove away, I saw the house in my rearview mirror. It looked smaller than I remembered. It looked stagnant. A place frozen in time, held together by guilt and deception. I realized then that coming home wasn't about the physical place. It was about finding closure. And I had found it, even if it wasn't the closure I had hoped for. The journey back to the city was long, but it was quiet. I thought about the last 10 years, the struggles I had faced, the people I had met, the person I had become. I wasn't the same girl who had run away from that house 10 years ago. I was stronger, more resilient, and I had learned that family is not just blood. It is truth, and if there is no truth, there is no family. I realized that my sister had been a prisoner of her own making. She had spent a decade trying to be someone else, trying to fill a role that wasn't hers, and in the process, she had lost her own identity. She had become so obsessed with replacing me that she had forgotten how to be Clara. I thought about my mother and the sadness in her eyes. I hoped, deep down, that one day she would find the strength to confront the truth. But I knew I couldn't be the one to guide her there. That was a road she had to walk on her own. When I finally reached my apartment in the city, my home, the one I had built with my own hand, filled with furniture I had chosen and memories that were entirely my own, I felt a profound sense of peace. I walked through the door, kicked off my shoes, and sat down on my own sofa. I picked up my phone and looked at the photos on my gallery. There were hundreds of them, my friends, my colleagues, the beautiful places I had traveled, the moments of joy and triumph. Not a single one of them was a lie. I had gone looking for my past, hoping to fix it. Instead, I found that my past was exactly where it belonged, behind me. Life is strange that way. We spend so much time trying to reconcile with the people we were and the people who raised us, hoping for that perfect cinematic moment where everything is forgiven and everyone is happy. But real life isn't a movie. It's messy, it's complicated, and sometimes it requires us to walk away from the people we love to preserve the people we have become. I had lost a sister, but I had regained my sense of self. I had lost the fantasy of a perfect family, but I had gained the reality of a life that was truly mine. And as I stared out the window at the city skyline, watching the lights flicker to life one by one, I knew that for the first time in 10 years, I was exactly where I needed to be. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter. I decided to start my day with a long walk in the park. As I walked, I saw families everywhere, fathers playing catch with their sons, mothers laughing with their daughters, older couples walking hand in hand. For a second, a pang of jealousy hit me, but I pushed it away. Everyone has their own story, their own struggles, and their own versions of home. I stopped at a small coffee shop and ordered my favorite latte. As I sat there, I thought about the letters Clara had stolen. I imagined her, 10 years ago, tearing them open, reading them, and then burning them, afraid that I might return and steal the spotlight she so desperately wanted. It was a pathetic, small-minded thing to do. And the tragedy was, she didn't realize that she was the only one who had truly lost anything. She had lost me, she had lost my trust, and she had lost a decade of her own life trying to be a shadow. I realized then that revenge isn't about hurting the other person. It's about becoming the best version of yourself, the version they never wanted you to be. It's about living so well that their petty little secrets and lies become irrelevant. I went back to my apartment and started working on a new project. My career had been my anchor, and for the first time, I poured all my energy into it. I felt creative, driven, and focused. The difficult daughter was gone. In her place was a woman who knew her worth and wasn't afraid to defend it. A few weeks later, a letter arrived in my mailbox. It wasn't from Clara, and it wasn't from my mother. It was from a lawyer. My father had left a small savings account in my name, a small sum, just enough to show that, despite everything, he hadn't completely forgotten me. Attached was a brief note in his shaky, familiar handwriting. I hope you found whatever you were looking for. That was it. Just one sentence. I held the note in my hands for a long time. It wasn't a grand apology. It wasn't a confession of love, but it was an acknowledgement that I existed, and that he knew I had gone looking for something. It was his way of saying goodbye. I went to the bank and closed the account. I didn't want the money. I donated it to a charity for homeless youth, the kind of place where I would have been if I hadn't had the grit to survive on my own. It felt like the right thing to do, to turn that small, silent acknowledgement into something that could actually help someone else. I didn't hear from Clara or my mother for months. And then, one day, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello, Sarah," it was my mother. Her voice was thin, trembling. "Mommy, I had to call you," she sobbed. "Clara moved out. She got married and moved to the other side of the country." I didn't speak. I waited, letting the silence hang in the air. "The house is so quiet now," my mother continued. "And Sarah, I found them. The letters. They were in the bottom of her closet. She kept every single one of them. She never threw them away." I closed my eyes. "Why are you telling me this, Mom?" "Because I read them," she said, her voice cracking. "I read every single one of them. I read about your life, your struggles, your happiness. And I realize what we did, what she did, what I allowed to happen." "It's been a long time, Mom," I said, my voice steady. "I know. And I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to come back. But I needed you to know that I know. I'm not living a lie anymore. I'm living in this house, and it's very quiet." "I'm glad you know the truth, Mom," I said. "But the past is the past. I've moved on, and you need to as well." "I am," she whispered. "I'm trying. I wanted you to know that you were never forgotten. Not by me. Even when I thought you were gone, you were always in my heart." I hung up the phone feeling a strange sense of closure. She hadn't asked me to come home. She hadn't promised to change everything. She just acknowledged the truth, and in a way, that was enough. I realized then that we don't always get the big, dramatic ending we want. Sometimes we get small, quiet moments of clarity. Sometimes, the resolution is just knowing that the truth has finally come to light, even if it's years too late. I went back to my life, better and stronger than before. I made new friends, built new relationships, and continued to grow. I didn't forget where I came from, but I stopped letting it define where I was going. Years later, I found myself thinking about the day I returned home. It felt like a lifetime ago. I remembered the porch, the flickering light, the look in Clara's eyes. But the pain was gone. The resentment had faded. All that was left was a story, my story. A story about a girl who left to find herself, who returned to find her place occupied by a shadow, and who ultimately learned that the only home worth having is the one you build for yourself. And that, I realized, was the best success of all. Life is a series of chapters, and sometimes the hardest chapters are the ones that lead to the most important realizations. I had survived the betrayal. I had survived the erasure. And I had come out the other side, not as a victim, but as a survivor. If you ever find yourself wondering if you should go back to the past, just remember, you are not the same person who left. You have grown, you have changed, and you have value that exists outside of anyone else's opinion of you. Don't let someone else's definition of your life become your reality. The house with the peeling paint is just a house. The memories are just memories. The real story is the one you are writing right now, today. Make it a good one. Make it yours. And never, ever let anyone take your place in your own life, because you are the only one who can live it, and you are the only one who can define it. I am Sarah, and I am finally, truly home.